let's now understand how you can apply the export status to the supplier class. So there are two places you can apply the export status. Namely, one is where you declare the feature section, which we also briefly talk about in the various Q&A session for the course. And another place which you may not have imagined is when you declare create, meaning that I want to make the make command as one of the constructor for the supplier class, I can also declare export status over here as well. So there are two places, either here for an individual feature section which applies to all the features under this section over here, or it could be just right after the create clause, in which case all the commands you list over here will be applicable to this particular export status. So there are two places that we're going to talk about right now. I'll just show you different scenarios and you will see how they work and then decide which export status balance you want to make. Let's say we got this particular supplier class, and then let's say for now we just got the make being the constructor, and also we got the make over here, the command, and it will simply modify the attribute I by the input argument init I. Very simple supplier class. And when you actually don't put any export status in these two locations over here, let's say here and here, if you don't put anything, it will be as if you simply put any over here. And remember, the any class in IFO is like the object class in Java, which means any client class can call the make as a constructor, and any class can actually call the make as a command. Okay, so now let me just say this. Okay, let me put it here. Any class can call the make as a command. And also here, any class can call make as a constructor. Okay, so just notice the difference over here. One is about being a constructor, the other one is being about a command, right? For the constructor case, you're creating a new object, but for the commands, you're not creating a new object. So that's the difference. So let's take a quick look to see the different clients. Apparently, for now, there's no restriction whatsoever because they're simply just any. Okay, so let's just take a look at one client. You can see client 1 over here. We're declaring S and old S. So then I can put a label here. I can put supply S and supply old S. That's what I can do, right? We learned about this in the architectural diagram. So now when I say create s.make, this will compile because I'm now calling the make as a constructor in the client 1 class. And client 1 is okay because any simply tells you any class will be okay. So as far as this line is concerned, this one compiles. What it does is it's going to say S is now going to point to a supplier object, I'll say S over here. And then it's going to initialize the value to be 5. Okay, that's what it does. And then when you say old S is assigned to S. So now old S is now assigned to S. And then creates, so you're calling the create again. So that means you're calling the make as a constructor again, and now s.make. So that means S, so think about this one is green. S, rather than pointing to over here, is pointing to just a brand new object here of type supplier of value 5 for I. Okay, and then if you want to print out, is OS and S the same objects? Apparently not, right? You can see one object is here, the other object is over here. So they're not the same object. So it will be simply just false. So now, if you do OS is assigned to S. So now OS is assigned to S. That means OS, rather than pointing to over here, is now going to point to wherever S is pointing to. So now, if you say s.make, so now are we creating a new object? No, because we are not using the create keyword. We just say s.make. So s.make 7. So S is pointing to this particular object over here, and then we are changing the value over there into 7. So changing that into 7. So now when you say print OS equals S, will they be the same objects? Yes, they are the same object. More to that, if you say old S dot I, what will be the value? Well, it will also be 7. Well, simple aliasing that you learned from the previous OOP course. Well, if you follow the same tracing for client number 2, it will be exactly the same behavior, because right now the export status for both the constructor and also for the command call, so they have no restriction whatsoever because it simply didn't put anything there. That's case number 1, right? But for case number 2 and 3 and further cases, I'm not going to draw this diagram anymore. I just want to show you just for the first one. But now we're going to focus more on the restriction part. Let's say this. Give you one example. If I say rather than being no restriction at all, why don't we say this? If I say client 1, and then over here I would say client 2. So let's now say if you try to recompile these three classes over here, are we going to have any compilation error? Pause the video and think about it. Okay, assuming that you have thought about it, the answer is yes, we will get compilation error, but exactly where, you have to be careful. Okay, let's see for client number 1, does it compile? I would say it does not, because client 1 is only allowed to actually use the make as a constructor, only client 1. Okay, so meaning that under the context of client 1, we're using the make as a constructor, so this is okay. Okay, we're also trying to make use of the make as a constructor. This is also fine. However, when we say s.make over here, we are really trying to make use of the make as a command. And now, are we allowed to call the make as a command? No. In the context of client 1, the answer is no, because only client 2 is allowed. So this line is not going to compile, simply because client 1 is not listed in the list, which only allows client 2. Symmetrically, is client 2 going to compile? The answer is no, because client 2 is only allowed to be used as a command, but it cannot be used as a constructor. Only client 1 is. So now in that case, this will not compile. This will not compile. However, this will compile. Okay. Hopefully you can see the issue over here, right? So putting export status either right after the creates or right after the feature has different meaning over here. Again, as a recap, if you put it right after the create, that means that only these classes will be able to use whatever the feature, whatever command over here as constructors. And whenever you say to use a routine as a constructor, you mean to use a create keyword over here, right? To create a new objects. On the other hand, if you put an export status over here in feature, in that case, what you're doing is you're actually using it as a command. Only client 2 can do so. That's why only client 2 can call s.make. Okay, the answer is you actually got compilation errors over here in version number 2, but you need to know exactly where you got a compilation error. Okay, let's just do one more case over here. Okay, I'll make it a little bit more extreme. What you can do is, what if I say here, client 3, assuming that client 3 is somewhere, I just didn't show it, and client 3 over here. Okay, it's a very quick check, right? So now, are we going to have compilation errors? Well, hopefully you can see that we do have compilation error, but where? I would say almost basically every use of the make is illegal, because according to the export status now, only client 3 can use the make as a constructor. Only client 3 can make use of the make as a command. So now that means under the context of client 1, the use of make as a constructor is illegal. And also the use of make as a command is also illegal, because client 1 is not client 3. Okay, number 1. And number 2, for client number 2 here, in the context of that, the use of the make as a constructor over here will be illegal because client 2 is not client 3. Okay, and then the use of the make over here as a command under the context of client 2 is also illegal because client 2 is not client 3. Okay, so now you can see how we can use the export status to really say we only want this feature maybe to be called as a constructor or to be used as a command by certain client classes. That will be very useful for us to present the ultimate solution for the singleton pattern. Okay, please make sure you understand about the once routine, expanded type, and also the export status. And then in the next video, we'll present to you the ultimate solution for the singleton pattern.